David Ballou and Dr. Matt Rhea, who has been reported, and I know you've been talking about it on your board. Nothing official yet from UA, but it's expected to be made official soon, that Ballou will be the Director of Strength and Conditioning for Alabama, and that Matt Rhea, who was with him at Indiana as an athletic performance coach, is expected to join Ballou at Alabama, I'm sure in a similar role. I already discussed this earlier, but this seems to be, Rodney, a change of pace a little bit. Scott Cochran did an unbelievable job, and there was some analytics involved, but this is going to be a heavy based analytics program with iPads and computer monitoring, not only to monitor their performance, but also help set and dictate the workout regimen for each athlete. What have you been able to find out in the last couple of days on these two gentlemen?
Well, that's a lot of it right there. I think that, the one thing that really caught my attention was the phrase that David Ballou used, and that was that this isn't guesswork. This is all strictly numbers. And they have a system that they believe in and they trust that gives, based on scientific and, as you mentioned, the analytics of it. And they think it's a precise method in terms of developing, strength, but not only that, also the speed development as well. And it was really interesting. I have a video on the front page of TighterInsider.com right now from YouTube that kind of highlights the program, and it's just interesting listening to their players talk and listening to the progress that they've made over the last year since they've been there. So really interested to see, waiting hopefully that we'll hear something soon in terms of an official announcement. And I just think that when you kind of look at this, if the hire does come through as we expect, I think this is something that's really exciting.
Rodney, we've discussed a lot of topics. I'm not big on revisionist history. In other words, fans, once a guy is no longer part of your program, a lot of times they want to say, oh, it was terrible. Scott Cochran did an unbelievable job here, did an incredible job for 13 years. And but it just so happens that he wanted to take his career in a different direction, and Kirby Smart gave him that opportunity. I wish him well. Hope it works out for him. Having said that, and we talked about this last week, to each other. Sometimes it is time for a change. 13 years is a long time, particularly in this day and age in coaching, right? And we know guys just don't stay many places 13 years anymore. And maybe I think it was the right move for him, and maybe it was good timing for Alabama. Maybe it was just a good time for a change. You agree with that line of thinking at all?
I do. I think in this case, and again, I agree with you too. It's not a personal thing. It's not Scott Cochran, nor is it Alabama. I think he got here at 27 years old. He's 40 now. He has other ambitions. I think that too, Alabama, in terms of looking forward to their strength and conditioning program, this new sports science center that they're about completing. I think when you start looking forward to that it probably was time for a change to move into another direction for both parties. So I don't think it's anything necessarily personal in that regard. Hopefully Scott Cochran, now that he's moving forward in terms of his career on the field, that'll be good for him. But I just think, Gary, that to be honest with you, talking to some people, they felt like that there were some indications that, and from people outside the program who had reviewed what Alabama was doing in terms of strength and conditioning, that the program, frankly, was in some respects, I'm not saying every respect, but in some respects outdated is the phrase that was used to me. So I think, to move forward, this is a move that I think is very positive for Alabama. And again, nothing against Scott Cochran. I think that it's also a positive move for him.
Something else I discussed earlier on the program, Rodney, but I want to get your reaction. When you look at Nick Saban, he's a classic old-school football coach in the sense that he came up when it was a line of scrimmage game. there's no doubt when the RPO craze hit and the fastball offenses, that he didn't care for it. He made that public, didn't like the direction the game was going. But you can be old school and also be not necessarily an innovator in the sense that he didn't, start that, but he is a guy who evolves, and that's why he's so successful. So he made the changes needed, bringing in Lane Kiffin. He made the changes needed to keep up with these offenses, and then Alabama even runs one now. He is doing the same thing, I think, here with this analytics shift in strength and conditioning. I'm not sure that Nick Saban understands all the analytics or how it works, but he's willing, Rodney, to go in a different direction because that's what top coaches do. They're not stuck in one way of thinking, correct?
Well, they all do that. The ones who sustain success. I mean, you look at Coach Bryant, the way he changed, he evolved. In the early 70s when he went to the wishbone, not only did he go to the wishbone, Gary, they evolved into the most effective passing wishbone offense there had been. Think about that. I think they held the record at one time for average yards per completion. So they did things and they evolved and they like you said, they didn't invent the wishbone, but they certainly utilized it and incorporated other things into it. And I think it's the same thing here with Nick Saban. Yeah, I mean, again, I think the thing he saw was it was time to move forward in the strength and conditioning program. The game has changed, like you said, and I think it requires a different kind of training, a different kind of development. And this is what I think this is, and I'm really excited about the speed aspect of it. Dr. Rhea has had if you look at his track record, the success that he's had in helping players improve their speed, I think where all this goes is not only are you enhancing the current players that you have, but also I think it brings something to the recruiting. It's just another thing you can use to sell. Here we are. We've got this modern approach to strength and conditioning to prepare our players, to develop our players to be the best they can possibly be. These are things that not many schools have right now. Again, I expect that you'll probably see now, you talking about being an innovator, you'll see now all these different schools are going to start following suit in what Alabama's do. So, yeah, I mean, I think this has got great benefits that are far-reaching.
Visiting with Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com and Tider Insider TV here on the Gary Harris Show. Something else that Coach Saban started doing, Rod, I don't know, if you remember, it's been several years, but working spring football where he holds a practice prior to spring break just to bring the guys together, get them on the field, I guess, in part to see where they're at conditioning-wise, go ahead and do a little bit of, install in terms of things they can put on their notepads or iPads or notebooks to look at during spring break. But he gets them all together Friday, March the 13th this year, and then they don't practice again until Monday, March 23rd. So you hold one practice, and then you let them go on spring break. But that, too, I think, Rod, is also designed just to get them there to remind them about spring break and not getting in any trouble. This is something that I like. I remember the first year that he did it, and again, I don't remember exactly what year it was. I said to you, this is kind of odd, but it's worked out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't do it last year. Not that they had any issues in spring, but if you're one of those that looks for patterns, the season probably didn't go as well. I obviously didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, he didn't do it last year, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
back to it this year. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're superstitious at all, then I guess maybe that might mean something to you. But again, I'd say this is what he generally does and has that practice. And you mentioned, before spring break, certainly having the team together on the practice field that one time, and then as they depart and come back. But and I think it's good, too, to get those early enrollees. You've got, 12 or 13 here now. Get them on the field before spring break, too. Give them a little feel for it. I think it puts a taste in the player's mouth, Gary, as they kind of go on their way for spring break. You know, they're gone, 10 days when you include the weekends or whatever. And so I think that if you have that practice, maybe it's kind of in their mind the whole time, because I know that Coach Saban wants them to work out. He wants them to take care of themselves over those 10 days, because you're just coming off your fourth quarter program. You know, you've put in a lot of work, a lot of effort. You know, you can go down, you can take 10 days and not take care of yourself physically, Gary, and you know this. You not take care of yourself 10 days physically, whether it's nutritionally, whether it's working out, whether it's sleeping, whatever it is, you're going to feel the effects when you come back.
Right.
So they get back on the practice field on the 23rd, and the guys who really haven't taken care of themselves, they're going to feel it. And you're going to waste three or four practices as a player trying to get yourself back to where you need to be. And so I think this practice maybe gives them something that kind of sticks in their mind, what they need to do, what their priorities need to be when they're on spring break.
Something else, Rodney, I want to get your take on, and again, it's just been so many things since Nick Saban got to Tuscaloosa in 2007 that we've watched him do that now we see everybody in college football doing it in terms of the way they recruit and just so many things. Another thing are the coaching clinics, and not that there haven't been coaching clinics. They've been around forever. I get that. At one time, just like the camps, they were really designed to help the assistant coaches make a little extra money before they were making the kind of money they're making now. But the coaching clinic with Nick Saban went to a different level here at Alabama. And this 2020 Clinic of Champions, which is coming up April 2nd through the 4th, again, Rod, just when you read through this list, it just shows you not only how on top of things Nick Saban is, but the reach of Alabama football. Let's run through this list. It came out last week, but I want to run through it with you. NFL and College Football Hall of Famer Jimmy Johnson. Carolina Panthers head coach Matt Rule. Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy. Virginia head coach Bronco Mendenhall. Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell. Panthers offensive coordinator Joe Brady, who just last year torched Alabama at LSU. Texas special teams coordinator Brad Seeley, Panthers quarterback coach Jake Peets, and motivational speaker Dr. Kevin Elko. Clinic of Champions will include a chalk talk with the entire Alabama coaching staff, along with a breakout session with defensive line coach Freddie Roach. That's impressive, Rod.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a high school coach, you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss that.
Right. It's a great opportunity, but I also think, too, that, the Alabama staff will have a great opportunity to hear these guys, meet with these guys, learn some things, share ideas. I think that's always something that's a great opportunity as well. As you said, the high school coaches, even junior college coaches that come in to you attract those guys, you get them here to your campus, and certainly they have an opportunity to learn a lot, but they also have a lot to learn. They also have a lot they can learn about your program, just being here and being around it. And I think, too, that once again, you're developing some relationships with these coaches. These coaches have great players, eventually, that you're going to recruit. And so I think this is an opportunity to develop a relationship with these coaches that will help you there, too. So there's so many benefits, I think, to it. And like you said, I mean, wow, what a lineup. It may be, and I don't remember all the previous lineups that they've had, Gary, because they've had some pretty good ones, but this one's extremely impressive. And I think it is interesting, all the names that you mentioned, and one that obviously sticks out is Joe Brady, and just how, I mean, think about this. A year ago right now, nobody even really knew Joe Brady. I mean, not just your casual, I'd never heard of him. And I know that when he was hired at LSU, they certainly were very excited about it, but we still didn't know anything about him. And now just look at how far he's come. And, that he's got a lot offensively in terms of, the things that they've done that he knows, that his forte, his specialty, all of those things that he can help with some of these high school coaches and people that'll attend this event.
Lastly, Rod, and we got to get to the break, but I already got a call about this morning too. Terrell Lewis up at the Combine said that he blamed a lack of communication for Alabama's two losses to LSU and Auburn, and kind of said it started from the top down. I won't read the quote again, but basically blame the coaching staff. So someone called in this morning again to get on Pete Golding. First of all, Terrell Lewis was a good player. Had a hard time getting on the field, but had a good year. But this is a guy also that didn't want to play in the bowl game, and that's his right. I'm just saying, it wasn't important enough to him to see it through the entire season. So after the fact, when you lose games, there's always criticism. As far as the Pete Golding criticism, I'm going to say what I've said. I'm not a coach, all right? I don't really know what those coaches know. All I know is that Nick Saban isn't afraid to get rid of coaches. He isn't afraid, as we've talked about, to change. If he keeps Pete Golding in that position, Rodney, I have to believe there's a reason for it. And I have to believe, based on following Nick Saban for 13 years, not that he's always right, but that he believes that's what's best for the program. So I know there's a lot of banter going around about Pete Golding, whether or not he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to lean, as I've done oftentimes when we've had these type of discussions, I'm going to lean toward Nick Saban, that he knows more than I do. So I am asking you about what's, all the criticism pointed toward Pete Golding and what you make of it.
Well, I mean, if this is about originating from Terrell Lewis, again, I don't know. I heard the comment and all that. I'm not sure what he specifically meant by top to bottom. Again, it's always, Gary, sometimes things are said, but you really don't understand or know exactly what the intent of those comments were. So it's hard for me to base it on that. But, again, I assume that Nick Saban, if he keeps Pete Golding, he's comfortable with with what they're doing. And, I do think that Pete Golding himself admitted that he had some growing pains in that, learning in terms of being a defense coordinator at this level in this conference. I think he made those comments. And, again, I don't know that it's one coach, though. I don't know that when you have difficulties that it's one player. It's a combination of things. Alabama lost a ton of personnel. That's not an excuse. That's the truth. They lost a ton of personnel the previous 2 years. And not only that, Gary, probably recruiting. They had not replaced some of that talent. They did not recruit as well in terms of evaluations. They lost some players due to injuries. There's only so much a coach can do in terms of what you're putting on the field. You had 2 true freshmen at inside linebacker. That wasn't expected. Dylan Moses went down. Yabi Anoma could have been a difference maker as a pass rusher, and he had his issues and moved on out of the program. He had so many other injuries with LeBron Ray, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there's more to it than, one guy's coaching. So I would assume, like you, that if Nick Saban feels like Pete Golding is a guy who can do the job, that's until he makes a move and shows something differently. I would think that he's confident and comfortable with Pete Golding.
We know this. Whatever topics we're discussing here, they're going to be discussed on TiderInsider.com on that closed forum. And, of course, a lot of other information available there as well. And a lot of basketball discussion. Alabama, we didn't have time for it today, but big basketball win. Tell the listeners about TiderInsider.com.
Yep, TiderInsider.com. It's only $48 a year. And you can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There's an address there to send a check. And I got a little video there on the front page right now, Gary, about the Indiana program under David Ballou. And so I think that's real interesting. Just a 5-minute video from YouTube that your fans there can listen to for free.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Rodney.
Okay, buddy. Take care.